I've always enjoyed camping alone. There's nothing quite like being out in nature, away from city noise, away from people, just me and the forest. I've camped in all kinds of places, but last year I decided to try somewhere new, a remote forest called Whispering Pines. The name sounded poetic, almost peaceful, but in reality it was isolated, more than 30 miles from the nearest town and completely out of cell service range. That's what I liked about it. I arrived one late autumn afternoon. Fog crept low among the pine trees, and the forest was so dense that even daylight seemed muted. It was unnervingly quiet. I set up camp off a small overgrown trail, far from the main road. The fire crackled, dinner was simple, and I sat listening to the wind sigh through the trees, carrying the sharp scent of pine resin. The first night passed peacefully, almost. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound. It wasn't loud or sudden, just whispering. So faint I thought maybe I was dreaming, but it kept going, like someone talking just outside my tent, murmuring words I couldn't understand. I switched on my flashlight and quietly unzipped the flap. Nothing. The fire had died down to embers. The woods were still. No footsteps, no animals, just the breeze or something like it. I told myself it was just wind through the branches, but deep down I knew it wasn't. The next morning, I decided to explore deeper into the forest. I came across an old path almost completely swallowed by weeds and roots. About 30 minutes in, I found something strange, a circle of stones, carefully arranged in the middle of a clearing. There were no houses nearby, no signs of other people. At the center of the circle stood a dead tree, its trunk half snapped. Strange symbols were carved into its bark, symbols I didn't recognize. I snapped a few pictures and headed back. That night, the whispering returned, louder, closer. I could hear faint footsteps circling the tent. I held my breath, turned off my light, and stayed perfectly still. My heart thundered in my chest. Then, a cold finger slid slowly down the fabric of the tent behind me. I jumped up, grabbed my pocket knife, and burst out of the tent. Nothing, no one, no tracks, just the wind whispering through the pine needles. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat by the fire, gripping my knife, staring into the dark. Every time the wind blew, I swore I heard my name being spoken between the trees. At dawn, I decided to leave. I packed quickly. My only thought was to get out. But when I returned to the old path, something made my blood run cold. The stone circle was different. Where the dead tree had stood, there was now a fresh pine branch, stabbed into the earth and soaked with something thick and dark. Not quite blood. Beneath it in the mud were footprints, mine, and next to them, another set, larger, deeper, facing toward where I had just come from. Like something had been following me. I ran, left my backpack, my gear, everything. I didn't stop until I reached my car and sped away from that cursed forest. I never went back. A week later, I looked through the pictures I'd taken, and in one photo, one of the stone circle, there was a figure standing behind the dead tree. Not a person. Not exactly. Something tall and thin with pale skin like ash, no eyes, no mouth, just standing there, watching me. I deleted the photos, and I swore to myself I'd never camp alone again. But sometimes when the wind picks up near the trees outside my apartment, I still hear it. Whispers. And I wonder, did it ever leave Whispering Pines? Or is it getting closer? It was supposed to be a quiet weekend away from everything. I had taken a solo trip into the northern woods of Washington, near the edge of a state forest where cell signal dies and the nearest town is a 40-minute drive through winding, muddy roads. I wanted solitude, no distractions, just me, my tent, and the sound of nature. The first day was perfect. I pitched my tent near a stream, far off the main trail. I made a small fire, cooked a simple meal, and watched the sun disappear behind the pine trees. It was peaceful, almost eerily so. Not a single other soul in sight. Just the rustle of trees and distant hoots of owls. That night, it started raining, a soft drizzle that quickly turned into steady downpour. I zipped myself up in my tent and listened to the rain drum above me. It was calming, until I woke up at around 2:30 a.m. I wasn't sure what stirred me. Maybe it was the silence, the kind of sudden quiet that makes your skin crawl, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Then I heard it. A slow, deliberate zipper noise, like someone opening the outer flap of my tent. I froze. My own tent had 2 layers, a mesh inner wall, and the waterproof fly that zipped up over it. I always kept the outer layer zipped tight. The sound I heard was unmistakable, metal teeth separating slowly just inches from my head. My breath caught in my throat. I reached out, fumbling for my flashlight. When I turned it on and shined it toward the zipper, nothing was there. The flap was still closed, but I know what I heard. Maybe the rain played tricks on my ears, I told myself. Maybe a branch dragged across the fabric. Still, I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, everything looked normal, except for the faint, muddy outline of what looked like a bare footprint just outside the entrance to my tent. It was small, too small for a man. Bare, human. I packed up that day and hiked a bit further into the woods, trying to shake the creeping feeling. I set up camp again, deeper this time, near a rocky outcrop. I told myself it was fine, that whatever it was, if anything, it must have been a weird animal or my mind playing tricks. That second night, I locked up the tent carefully, zipped both layers, checked them twice. I even stacked my boots just inside to block the entrance. Then I tried to sleep. Sometime past midnight, I woke up again. But this time, it wasn't a zipper sound. It was breathing. Low, raspy breathing on the other side of the tent wall. I didn't dare move. I barely breathed myself. My flashlight was under my sleeping bag, but I was too afraid to reach for it. The breathing continued for what felt like minutes. Then came the scratching. Slow, deliberate drags of nails or fingers across the tent fabric, moving from one end to the other. I could see the faintest outline of something pressing against the nylon. A head? A hand? Then silence. I stayed awake the rest of the night, clutching my flashlight and knife, waiting for dawn. When morning finally broke, I unzipped the tent slowly and peered out. No one, nothing. But the strange part was, my tent zippers were locked. Both inner and outer layers had the little clips I used to keep them shut tight. I hadn't touched them all night. No one could have opened the tent and zipped it back again from the outside. It didn't make sense. I started thinking someone was playing with me, some twisted prankster in the woods. But who would hike this far out just to mess with a random camper? And how did they get in and out without leaving tracks? I decided that was it. I was done. I packed up fast. I didn't even eat breakfast. I just threw everything in my pack, broke camp, and started hiking back toward my car. The trail felt different on the way back. Heavier, quieter. I kept checking over my shoulder. At one point, I thought I saw movement between the trees, just a flash of something pale and fast, but when I looked again, it was gone. By the time I reached my car, my nerves were shot. I threw my gear in the back, jumped in, and locked the doors. I sat there for a long minute, trying to calm myself. Then I saw it. There, on the rear window of my car, a small smeared handprint, faint, wet, like it had been pressed there recently. I didn't stop. I drove, fast. When I got home, I threw the tent away. I haven't gone camping alone since. I still don't know what it was. A prank? A drifter living in the woods? Something else? All I know is that whatever it was, it didn't want to hurt me. Not yet. It just wanted to be near me, to unzip the tent, to breathe beside me, to remind me I was never really alone. I had been planning my solo camping trip for weeks, a remote stretch of forest in the Pacific Northwest where there were no marked trails, no cabins, and no people. I wanted silence, solitude, just me, the trees, and the stars. I parked my car miles away and hiked deep into the woods, finding a perfect spot beside a small, calm lake. I set up camp, pitched my tent, started a fire, and watched the sun slip behind the mountains. The first night was peaceful. I fell asleep to the gentle chirping of crickets and the occasional splash of a fish in the lake. The second night was when it started. It was about 1:30 in the morning when I woke up. There was no noise, no wind, no insects, just an oppressive, unnatural silence, the kind that presses against your eardrums. I sat up, confused, listening. Then I saw it, a light, a soft yellow glow flickering through the trees across the lake. It wasn't a campfire. It was steady like a lantern or a cabin window. But I knew there were no cabins around here. I had checked the maps. I had deliberately come to this area because it was isolated. Still, the light remained, unmoving, faint but visible. I lay back down, telling myself it was a trick of the eyes, a reflection, maybe even moonlight on water. But the moment I closed my eyes again, I heard a faint creaking sound, like wood bending, like footsteps on old floorboards. But I was in the middle of the woods. The next morning, I hiked around the lake to check where the light might have come from. Nothing. No structure, no fire pit, no people. But as I pushed through the brush, I found something that stopped me cold. A pile of rocks, carefully stacked in the shape of a human figure. Arms, legs, head, and something else, a scrap of faded red flannel caught on a branch nearby. It looked old, weathered, something that had been out here a long time. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept the fire going, clutching my flashlight and knife, eyes fixed on the opposite side of the lake. At 2 a.m., the light returned, same spot, same steady glow. And this time, it moved, just slightly, like someone walking past a window. I should have packed up right then and there, but I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to believe it was explainable, that I was tired, overreacting, that my mind was playing tricks on me, until the third night. That night, the rain came. It poured relentlessly, drenching everything. My fire died. My gear was soaked. I stayed inside the tent, wrapped in my damp sleeping bag, shivering. I kept glancing out the mesh window toward the lake. No light, just darkness and rain. But at 3:17 a.m., I heard it again. Footsteps, not on dry leaves, not in the forest, on wood, closer than before. Creak, creak, creak. I sat up, heart hammering. Then came another sound, one that chilled me to my core. A soft tap, tap, tap on the back wall of the tent. I turned, flashlight shaking in my hand, and shone the beam toward the sound. Nothing, just the rippling of wet nylon. Then another tap, but this time on the front of the tent. Whatever it was, it had moved. I stayed silent, breath held, trying to listen. Suddenly, the zipper on the tent's door moved, just an inch, downward. I screamed, lunging forward and slapping the flap closed from the inside. Nothing answered. No voice, no motion, silence. Eventually, I passed out from exhaustion. When I woke up, it was still raining, but lighter. The sun filtered weakly through the trees. I opened the tent slowly, terrified of what I might see. But there was nothing. No tracks, no signs of intrusion. Except the pile of rocks was now right outside my tent. Same figure, same careful stacking, and another piece of red flannel draped over the top. That was it. I packed everything. Fast. I didn't eat, didn't look back, didn't rest. I hiked the entire way back to the car without stopping. When I finally got back to the main road, muddy and soaked, I drove straight to the ranger station. I told them everything. They didn't laugh, but they didn't seem surprised either. One of the older rangers pulled me aside. We've had reports before, strange lights, sounds, people finding those rock totems. I asked him if anyone had gone missing. He hesitated. A few, mostly drifters. One hiker found curled up at his campsite, repeating the same thing over and over again. I swallowed hard. What was he saying? The ranger looked me dead in the eyes. He said, "There's a cabin where no cabin should be, and it wants you to come inside."